The second hardest job after ours is being the family of a soldier. I mean, not only do you have your everyday life to deal with, but you have to deal with that fact that that loved one is in danger, and knowing they're in danger, and you don't know if you're ever going to see or hear from them again until either they walk through the door or, you know, that black Cadillac pulls up and the chaplain steps out of it. I may be the one with the PTSD, but my family has to deal with the repercussions of my PTSD. My wife had to get drug out of bed and pushed under the bed because I was having a flashback and thought insurgents were coming through the door. My children had to see my angry outbursts and watch me get drunk and wonder why Dad's so angry and drunk all the time. It's because I was trying to escape reality.
We put up our Christmas tree a few weeks ago, and Ian actually asked if we could leave it up and leave the lights on so that Daddy can find his way home. Because I think he thinks he's lost.
When our nation goes to war, there are a variety of mental health issues, and many of those issues aren't exactly mental health diagnoses. There's a great deal of stress placed, of course, on the people serving in war, but their families serve with them.
It was always harder, I always felt it harder on the families because the families have to keep going on minus the soldiers.
Most of the guys here are active duty and have multiple deployments, 3, 4, 5, 6 deployments. So a 6-year-old child may, have seen their parent for a few months.
Military children serve alongside with their parents, and if you ask people who are deployed what they think about, if they have children, they think about those children.
I deployed early on, 2003 through 2004, and my daughter was 7 at the time.
This picture is me and my dad right when he got back from Iraq, and then my mom told me that he had to go back. That was really tough because I didn't want to say goodbye to him again after he already came back, because I love my dad so much and I would do anything to have him there all the time. So that was probably the hardest thing for me because I just wanted him to stay there, and I wanted to do so much with him. I wanted to show him my stuff, everything I've learned and stuff, and it was just really hard to say goodbye to him again.
And so when you hear 5 or 6, deployments, this has never gone on before. And we're talking year-long and in the beginning, 15-month-long deployments.
There is a link between the overall number of combat encounters that you have. The more combat, the higher the risk of PTSD. And that seems to, frankly, outweigh any other vulnerability factor.
How long is that going to last for those children, and what consequences will it have? Is this some sort of transitory experience related to their parental separation, and after a year or two it won't be visible anymore, their symptoms will subside?
The children's behavior when Mike's deployed, sometimes they get out of control, they have temper issues.
When he says things to me like, "I'm just sad, I want him home," I don't know how to respond other than "me too." Because I do too. And I'm sorry to cry, but this is my son, and I'm his mother. I'm supposed to protect him. That's my job. And to know that there are days that he's just heartbroken and I can't mend his broken heart, it makes me feel incredibly powerless. Better? Yes. Okay, I think so too.
Or is this a disruption that diverted their development a little bit, and now they're kind of off course, and 10 years down the road or 20 years down the road, we're going to see much more notable problems?
The research really supports that these children at the bare minimum are experiencing much higher levels of anxiety than the typical civilian population experiences.
On the other hand, historically, going back at least to Vietnam, we know that probably the strongest single predictor of whether you're going to get PTSD or continue to have it after you come back is your perceived level of social support. And what we're really talking about here is, do you believe your family has your back? Whether or not you think your family understands you right now, whether you're prepared to tell your family and see if they understand, if you believe your family is trying to understand and that they care, that predicts whether or not you're going to have PTSD, and it predicts how long you'll have PTSD. These two factors, exposure to combat and the intensity of that combat, plus whether or not you have that social support from your family when you come back, probably speak to more of the variance, more of the odds of getting PTSD than any other factor, biological, psychological, or military.
Without the support at home, it takes the soldier kind of away. He's more worried about what's going on at home than worrying about taking care of himself on the battlefield.
We're really asking so much more of these families than we ever had, and I think in our country's history. It's not only just the length of the conflicts that have been going on. It's also the fact that never in our country's history have so few been asked to do so much.
But part of military culture is I don't complain, and I don't put my problems among the problems of the group or of the military as a whole. And so in military culture, when you meet a stranger like a pediatrician in this community, you don't say to them, well, look at me, I'm suffering because I'm part of the military, I'm a military child. If they don't ask you, you don't talk about it, and you certainly don't complain even if they do ask you. And this too adds to the invisibility factor. I think it's that invisibility factor with military families and military kids. And again, the fact that 40% of these people are Guard and Reserve members living very far from military bases where no one even thinks about that issue. I think these are the challenges we face.
These children were experiencing post-traumatic stress in relation to events that they were not personally on site to see. So kids saying, my parents never talk about it. Kids are paying very close attention. You may think that you're protecting them and you're making everything all right by pretending it's not there. Children usually are pretty savvy to that sort of thing.
My mom actually kept a lot of it to herself. She didn't really cry or anything in front of me because she didn't want me to get upset because I was already really upset about it.
When he's deployed, I'm the mother, of course, but I feel like I become the mother and the father to both the children. The transition for life is really difficult. I feel like I've become a single mother when he's gone.
I will never forget the day that we were actually at the grocery store and an Air Force captain walks in, and Ian thought it was my husband. I mean, he goes running over to him. He's like, Daddy, Daddy, and he looks at him, and this captain looks down at him, and he goes, oh, I'm so sorry, I'm not your daddy.
So going to war is a much bigger issue than simply identifying a small group of people who come back who might have a certain diagnosis like PTSD. And to understand it and to approach it, we need a public health approach, not just a clinical approach in which we diagnose a certain illness, find those people who have it, screen them out, give them a medicine or a treatment, and then everything's fine. A public health approach means educating and providing resources for the broader population, and then having those resources in place throughout the whole deployment cycle and have it ready when it repeats and repeats as it has in these wars.